talk to me. When you get that new Corvette, being your best friend, can I please have a ride in that baby?
Oh, yeah! Can I get a ride?
Gnarly!
Welcome to the Rad Movie Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Donaldson, and a super fan of the movie, probably like you. In this podcast, I will be interviewing the cast of the film, some of the writers, and some notable fans. You can watch this podcast as a video podcast on YouTube or listen to it anywhere you listen to podcasts. Please consider liking and subscribing and share this with your rad fan friends. Hey everybody, Tony Donaldson here. Welcome back to the Rad Movie Podcast. Today I'm talking with Jamie Clarke, the guy who played Luke in Rad. Yeah, the voice behind one of the most quoted lines in the whole movie, and crew's best friend. We get into how he actually got the role as a teenager in Calgary, what it felt like being on the set with the Hollywood crew and the BMX riders, and a couple of behind-the-scenes details that I've never heard anywhere else, especially about how certain scenes were pulled off. Then it gets really interesting because Jamie's life after Rad went in a direction that's honestly mind-blowing, and it all ties back into his experience making Rad. So stick around all the way to the end. This one's funny, nostalgic, and surprisingly inspiring. Let's get into it. Hey, Jamie, how are you?
Tony, I'm doing great. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting to me because you're the first person of the cast, new person that I've met, at least virtually, in 15 years? Something like that? Well, actually, I take it back. Yeah, I met Kelly more recently than that, but I mean, you're, crew's best friend.
It's funny, and we remain, Bill and I, good friends, which is just 2 days ago, I was in LA doing some work, and we connect for 40 years. We're pushing 40 years of friendship. And we got together and went out for a bite to eat at the Perch out. It's LA. It was 80 degrees or something. I'm from Canada, so it's beautiful. We're hanging out, jazz music. We have a beautiful dinner and just constant laughs and reminiscing and stories. And it was just great to see him. So yes, a friend of crew in the movie and a friend of Bill's in real life.
That's fantastic. I love that. I love the fact that you guys are still keeping up with each other and everything after all this time. So
it's really remarkable when you think of it, that kind of consistency of friendship through that time. Yeah, it's one of those, I think of all the kinds of possessions that one can have in life, not to get all philosophical on you out the gate, but friendship, in whatever form that it takes, one learns is so important. I might have been more wrapped up in a fancy suit or a sexy wallet or whatever dumb thing, material thing. Right. Younger in life, but I can tell you now that the friendships, the memories of friendships are what I count as my most valuable possessions, if you can own a friendship. But
yes. Well, I mean, it requires care and feeding, but yes. So how did you get involved with the movie?
So I'm from Calgary, born and raised. In fact, we're sitting in my office in Calgary. I do end up traveling around the world quite a bit for work and different adventures, but I'm from Calgary. And that summer, I was looking for a job. I was a ski racer, a cross-country ski racer. I come from a modest family. You had to, figure out how to pay for stuff. And a lover of bikes, got wind of this movie coming to town. Originally, Tony, I wanted to get a job. Could I be like a grip? Could I don't know, sweep the floors? I'm not sure. But it was my mom who said to me, honey, the best job and arguably the best paid job is to be in the cast, to be an actor. I was like, oh, good point, Mom. I'm 17 years old. I'm 57. Yeah, 17 years old. And so Mama said, shoot for the cast and see where you end up. And I was like, oh, okay. And so it was originally that I was looking for a summer job. My mom encouraged me to get a speaking role because you get paid better. And so that was the impetus that got the whole thing started.
Wow. So this is amazing to me because, I mean, your accomplishments afterwards and your motivational speaking and stuff is outstanding. But back then, you were only shooting for being like a PA or a grip.
I wouldn't even, and I think PA and grip were too far above my pay grade that I would have deserved at that point in terms of value that I could have offered. I just wanted a summer job, a temporary piece of work that I could put some money in my pocket so that I could fund my future ski adventures. And my mom, again, was like, say, challenged me to go for it. And so I had no idea what I was getting involved in. I had no idea what the process was about. But I went downtown. I was stalking the crew. And I don't think that's an accurate use of the word, stalking the crew at the International Hotel. I could just see it through my window over there. I'm right downtown in Calgary in my office, and I was stalking them, just trying to get a feel of things, tried to get up onto the 5th floor or wherever they were. Of course, security couldn't get in. I tried to learn who was casting locals, a gentleman named Patch something or other, and I tried to get his attention, and that didn't work. And so then, conferencing with my mom, she was a fan of Hal Needham, a cowboy at heart, stuntman, all this, crazy story she told me about him. So I went into my closet, being a Calgarian, who doesn't have some denim and a cowboy hat? And I thought, well, maybe I could just show up with this. My mom pumping up my tires because I was terrified. I was nervous. And I went in there and I was able to capture Hal's attention. And then it was an arduous process of auditioning because Hal was the only one. Now this is 40-year-old memory of a kid, so you got to take everything I say with a grain of salt, because this is just my brain trying to piece together things that happened 40 plus years ago. And my sense of it was, probably because I was terribly insecure and worried, was that I had no champions except for Hal. But boy, did I ever have a good champion. And he took this risk on me. He just felt like I had some kind of confidence. He would tell me some sort of belief, and he took me a little under his wing, much against other producer and decision makers. Why would you take a winger like this on some unknown kid in such an important role, friend of the star?
Right.
And with Hal's help, I was able to get the proper job that my mom made mention of.
Good for your mom. Like, seriously, that's awesome.
Tony. Yeah, good for my mom, still alive and doing well. And that experience, as you probably already get the sense of, I think, it's not hyperbole, changed the direction of my life.
Wow. That's amazing. So you were looking for a job just to pay for your adventures.
Yes.
That's telling about your life right there. And it's what we all did. I mean, I had a paper route to pay for my BMX parts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Desperate times will lead to desperate measures. Sorry, go ahead. My apologies. Your podcast.
I was just going to say, what was your background with riding BMX bikes before that?
Very little. I had, ours was a modest family. And so I wanted a Stingray, right? I was just jamming on the banana seat and the race. I know it's so silly, but the Schwinn, I didn't have it, but some buddies did. And, you'd borrow one and we'd take cardboard and some clothespins, and put them on the forks and hammer down the road and make some sound with the spokes, pretending you're on a motorcycle. God, it's probably some story you hear 1,000 times. Just wanted that sense of freedom of a motorcycle, but you could use your leg power to get it. And so that was kind of my seminal moment in my life, in that I think two important moments. One, when you first drive a car, when you get in a car by yourself and drive away from all your problems, that's pretty cool. But I think more impactful is that moment when you get on a couple of two wheels and you can race off 4 times faster than ever before down the street and don't have to be home until the sun sets. Sense of freedom. So that would have been my exposure to bikes, but not to BMX, really. There were the magazines. It was sort of floating around in your consciousness, but really, I didn't have one. None of my friends had them. We knew of them, but it wasn't like I was, way up here in Canada where we're under a foot of snow a good chunk of the year. BMXing was not on at least my radar, probably because I was a loser on the outside. But that's the truth of the matter. Not until the movie, not until I saw what these incredible athletes could do on these bikes at Hell Track did I realize, whoa. And then obviously in the opening credits of the show, right, that crazy footage in Cali, you just, so the movie is how I got exposed.
Very cool. Very cool. Who doubled you for the riding scenes?
Mostly Eddie, but it changed depending on the circumstances and depending on what was needed, obviously, because he'd be doing stuff primarily for Bill, for crew. But if there was a scenario where the action, like that one scene in the race and the trials where I crash, I go over my handlebars and actually feel it takes a pedal to the head as he's kind of jumping up through the ground. I'm sure suffered a concussion as a result of it long before we had even the conversation about that. So it depended a little bit on what the scenario was and who is needed for what scene. Because sometimes I'd be shooting and stuff and Al or Bill wasn't even on set, because it was just the way that, you know, how movies are made. It's quite confusing and lots of different things happening. So, and he did a lot. Anything that required any serious riding that I was involved in, Eddie Fiola was on the bike, from what I can remember. Another guy subbed in and out, and then when we did the trials, the races in Bowness Park, I was a pretty good athlete. I don't want to pump up my tires more than we can suggest. So Hal was quite comfortable to have me riding in the group because it solved some continuity problems. But even when we pleaded with the riders to slow down so Luke wouldn't get hammered, nobody did. I mean, I couldn't keep. I was a fit cross country skier. I was a good athlete, but I couldn't for 3 seconds hold my own with those riders. Just world-class, fantastic athletes. And they knew it, and I knew it.
Some of those guys were really fast.
Oh, unbelievable. And the directors would come, Hal would come over, and the AD was, hey, can you guys just slow it down a smidge? We need to keep Luke in the scene a bit. Gone. And I'm going everything that I've got. Because I was quite an outsider on that whole thing, as much as an actor I was an outsider. And the riders, I don't know if it was just my insecurity. I didn't want to approach them. They weren't, I wouldn't say they weren't friendly, but you didn't just go over and hang out with them.
Yeah, it's Bart described that in an interview I did with him a couple of years ago, where it's like there's the Hollywood group and there's the writers, and like he didn't fit in with any of those guys because he wasn't an actor and he wasn't, a biker. So that's
funny he says that. I wish I knew that because he and I could have hung out. But I was the 17-year old kid, and Bart was a big deal in his own right. And I wonder if today the hierarchy that you see, it probably hasn't changed much, which is unfortunate because I think, humans are humans and we all have value to offer. It doesn't matter your title or even your tenure. You're a human being on the planet and should be afforded sort of respect and opportunity. But I get it's a big machine and it all has to unfold almost like a military operation. So there's command and control. And I tried to mind my P's and Q's and maybe a little bit like Bart, but for different reasons. I didn't really fit in. But in some ways that shaped my experience because I could kind of plug in everywhere. I was fascinated by the whole movie making process. These amazing athletes on their bikes, these directors, actors, the producers, the cameras, the props. The whole thing, man, was awesome.
That's very, very cool. What was it like working with Bill?
Now, this is the thing about Bill Allen. He is the same guy today as he was then, and he was, to this day and back then, very generous with me. He could have found me annoying. He could have had, been impatient with my incompetence. But right from the first time we met at the International, I think we were on the call sheet and we shared a ride out. I can't remember the exact details. He was generous and kind and welcoming with me and made me feel at ease. And I felt after Hal, Bill was my mentor, my champion. And so it was a dream. Never made me feel anything but welcome and able to add some value.
It's awesome. And I fully believe that, knowing Bill for the years that I have. He's very much that way. Yeah,
I mean, I hope the fans can appreciate that in him. But there's a big spirit there. We wouldn't still be friends to this day as we are. We wouldn't have sat there and had a great dinner just a couple of nights ago. And that's more about Bill than anything. And he was very generous then. So it was a real treat. He helped me out a lot.
That's so cool. It's so cool. What was it like working with Marta?
Also very kind. She had been on lots of sets before. Everyone was quite a bit older. They were in their, I don't know all the chronology perfectly, but they're sort of in their mid to late 20s. And I'm this, 6'1", 165-pound kid showing up on set, 17, 18 years old. So everyone around me had this professional ability, say what you want about the film and its end production values. These were pros. And so working with Marta or Laurie or any of the crew, I'm sure they were rolling their eyes, have to suffer the fool that I was at the time. But across the board, man, generous. And maybe people were taking cues from Hal because he sort of set the tone. He was the leader, not just the director. And somehow he took a liking to me. And I think that really afforded me a privilege that pretty rare.
That is really cool. Really cool. Wow. I can't even imagine. So from Rad, you went on and did, what was it, next film? Was it Hyper Sapien?
Well, there was there was a cluster, I think 2 or 3, 40 years ago, and I didn't pay attention as I wish I had a bit. And I guess we can hide behind youth as the excuse, but I was just mesmerized by the whole thing. And at the same time, just kind of aloof and doing my own thing as well, a 17-year-old. So
right.
I wish I had paid a bit more attention, but I believe that group, the producing a group of which Talia Shire and the Schwartzman, this mechanism, which I still don't really even understand how that all worked, had a package of films they were trying to make, 2 or 3. And one of them was Hyper Sapien. And apparently I did a good enough job, or they were desperate enough for this other role to be filled in Hyper Sapien. So I ended up actually leaving Rad at various times, but obviously the permissions were easy. In fact, the dance scene was one of the days that Luke is supposed to be in there doing something, whether he's just cheering on his buddy as he's out on the dance floor on his bike. But I was off working on Hyper Sapien, and they just wrote me out of it, and away they went. So I did do that, and I don't even know what happened to that project in particular, but probably because my involvement, it didn't go too far. This isn't false Canadian modesty here, man. I'm telling you, it's probably the truth of the matter. But that was kind of an intersection from my life. I had to make some choices after that. Not like I would have had any kind of a career or an opportunity. But these opportunities, I had done Rad and also Hyper Sapien. You never know. And then there was further interest. But as I mentioned earlier on, I live in Calgary, and fans of the show will know that that's just not far from Cochrane and the site of many of the scenes. And 60 miles from here, as the summer weather would dictate, are some of the most impressive mountains on the planet, the world over.
So beautiful.
I've traveled to a lot of them. It's a great spot. And when it's not pouring or windy or kicking your ass, it's a fantastic place. So I had this opportunity to pursue acting. Who knows where it would have gone. Or my sort of original dreams of backcountry travel and skiing and mountaineering. And as seductive, flying to LA and spending time with Bill there and, doing all the sound work and blah, blah. Canadian kid, mountain climber. That was where my heart is. That's what I need to do.
Of course. Well, and we'll get into that shortly, but one other question that I had for you, two. Okay, when you crashed and your wheel got bent, tacoed as we would say, did they just take a hammer and beat it, or how did they bend it? Or did somebody actually crash do that? No,
that tire, yes. So that's right. When we come wheeling back to the race, letting my buddy know, hey man, it's all on you. The props manager had put the tire on one of the logs that lines the streets there in Boness Park, where Hell Track was set up and where the trials had been run. And had tacoed it on purpose by and it didn't work out perfectly. I do remember that a few of rims were bent that weren't, nobody would buy it. One of the pro riders were, that's not a tacoed wheel, man. And so they had to do it a couple of times and sort of present it for the quality stamp. I was like, I don't know, it looks bent to me. But the writers were like, oh yeah, that's a good one. And that's the one they put on the bike. So no, it didn't happen in an accident. It was all movie magic made in the background.
Very cool. Very cool. And what was the other question that I had for you? Did you see the movie in the theater?
I did. It was a kind of a thing that I told nobody about. Like my friends, they knew I had a job, but I didn't really talk about it because I didn't know. I don't know. I just didn't want to sound like some braggart, or I was really proud of it, but I was also worrisome about, I don't know. Hey, here's this movie I made. We should come and watch it. And I did watch it, and I did go to the theater, but I didn't run out and buy a bunch of tickets. Not like I could have afforded them, but I didn't run out and make a big deal of it. And I think it was kind of fun to underscore it that way because, my friends would go to it and then they'd be like, hey, that's what you did over the summer? And that was kind of fun. Cool. So I guess I'd rather under-promise and over-deliver, if anything. It's like sort of a good lesson in life.
Very much so. That's really cool. Were you surprised when it was out of the theater so quickly? And then what did you think about it later? Like when it really hit in VHS? Surprised and sad. Because I thought the story was so great. I mean, there are elements of it that you're watching, not like I'm some film critic, but I guess it changed the way I see film as a result of being so heavily involved in the process to make it. I've become, I think, a much more thoughtful a critic of what people put out into the world. If you've never walked in those shoes, it's easy to stand back and be critical of it and think, well, we should have done this and you should have done that. And in comparison, well, you've done nothing, so maybe you shouldn't comment. And that was powerful to me because the movie, it has its problems. It's not in many ways a great piece, but at the same time, there are fantastic elements to it. And I just, as a young person, and it still influences me today, really appreciate good storytelling and what it takes to piece that all together, especially when you see the machine of a film and how it's filmed out of sequence and crazy elements. And you think, God, at the end of the day, someone sat down in a room and cut this together, especially this was film. This was film. You put it all together, put a soundtrack to it, actually got in theaters, and there we are watching it. I was like, wow, that's amazing accomplishment. So I guess I've learned a lot. So I was sad that it didn't gain more traction initially, that it wasn't more popular. I guess probably my own vanity or ego wanted it to be a bigger deal, but that didn't diminish how proud I was of that and the experience and how much I learned. And then I kind of forgot about it. I really did. I channeled my passion into my climbing, and then I didn't really even understand the whole VHS phenomenon until I'd bump into somebody at a grocery store or at a bike shop, and they would pull out this VHS tape that they had, like you could barely watch it. It had been run so many times through the machine. Yes. Or they would gone to rent it and had rented it every time. And you start talking and you're like, wait, you watched this thing 87 times? Oh yeah, I'm counting. And wow. And I didn't really understand that impact until it just sort of got fed back into my face where I would bump into folks. And Bill and I would talk, but we were talking about life. This was the thing with Bill. Our conversations were forward-looking. We've been bonded in this experience all the years before, but we were talking about life and politics and religion and health and being humans on the planet. That's the kind of conversations. Bill and I had those conversations the other night. We were talking about the news of the day and the future. We didn't spend a whole lot of time sitting back looking at what we did in Rad. Right. Well, that totally makes sense.
Doesn't really answer your question.
Well,
I didn't really think about it.
Do you get recognized?
Probably a couple of weeks. I don't know. Do I look like Luke still? Probably not.
You look like a more mature version, but you still look like him.
I get recognized by true let's call them obsessed fans, like those who are really deep into, and I've had it in weird places, like all over the place. Like someone will get that weird look at you. And you just think, well, do I have something on my face? Did I forget to zip up my pants? What's going on here? And they'll come over and say to me, were you in that movie, Rad? And I was like, yeah, actually I was. You were Luke, we knew it. So it's not, it happens regularly though. It's not a daily occurrence, but it's certainly a monthly, and depending on where you are and what you're doing, it happens a lot. And there are a surprising number of very passionate fans out there when it comes to Rad. Seemingly, folks
I'm one of those guys.
Didn't even know it existed. Love it. Yeah. Would you? So if you and I, Tony, honestly, I'm walking through the airport, and you're walking through the airport, and we walk long and slow enough that you can take a look at me, would you go, holy shit, that's Jamie Clarke from Rad? He played Luke. And you're a fan.
I don't know.
Probably
because
not.
I'm really bad at that sort of thing. I have friends who go, hey, look, because I live in Los Angeles, so they're like, hey, look, that's so-and-so. And it's like, oh, I guess it is. It's like, I'm not looking around like that. So, but...
what I'm finding interesting is that a lot of the people that I engage with are successful in their careers as business people or otherwise, and they rode BMX as kids. Like that experience for them, whether they're my age, I'm in my late 50s now, or whether they were, younger when they came up, or now they're in leadership roles and was through an uncle or an older brother or something that they watched it, or whatever the dynamic is. And that it had a huge influence on folks. So I do see it. I do see it a lot. And not for a moment am I anything but thrilled to hear that it meant something to somebody.
It is a proper cult classic. I mean, it has a really rabid following, and so it's
awesome.
It's really cool. It's really cool, and so brought up one other question. In the scene at the beginning when you're delivering papers and you roll across, or whoever was doubling you rolls across the hood of the station wagon. You get up and you say, ooh, Gnarly. Was that recorded there, or did you record that afterwards? Huh?
So we did a lot of, and there's probably some fancy words, terminology, ADR. I don't even remember what it's called. Where
it is ADR.
Flew to LA, you're in a fancy sound. It is ADR. Thank you. Sorry, I'm not that super sharp about all the fancy terms. But yeah, we're in the sound stage, and I was just like, what is going on? They got gravel here and just... geniuses, again, magic, all those years ago.
Yes.
And so we did a lot of, there's a few places. I think Marta and I recorded some stuff when Crew is training to try to get the backflip going, and he's got all the gear on, and he's smashing on the mattresses, and Marta and I are like, some of that stuff we threw in there after the fact as per the team's direction. Some of the stuff we did on site, and maybe it wasn't the quality that they needed or the timing. Now, I'm pretty sure that the gnarly scene, which is what people say to me all the time when I bump into someone who's a fan, they talk about that experience and that I was this fun energy and this good friend and sort of this, goofy Labrador dog who just ran around and, looking for Crew. Where's Crew? And just enjoying the whole thing and so adding some levity to it, but without exception, gnarly. And they give me that line. I know we did it in the moment. I know we voiced it again in ADR. I don't know what they used in the finish. It kind of I haven't watched it in a while. It sort of feels like it was the latter, like they used the one we did post in the studio, but I don't remember, Tony. Sorry, buddy.
That's all right. That's all right. And then, so how did you go from a BMX movie to, and you've sort of talked about this already, into the life of adventure that you have now?
I've been very lucky, man. My whole life, I have really never held a proper job. I have had an entrepreneurial path since those days. I ran an outdoor store in Calgary for 14 years. So that was a job for sure, an e-commerce business, and manufacture our own adventure gear, down jackets, 10 sleeping bags. But that was, I was the co-founder and CEO of that business. And so there's a real entrepreneurial push to that. I guess, I don't know, this is when I said earlier that this experience shaped something of the direction of my life. I think the moral of the story, whether you think it was artfully told or not, this idea of having some belief about undertaking something where the outcome is unknown, where the odds are stacked against you, yet you still persevere. So I guess in a way that my experience with Rad set me up for the life that I've lived consequently. And I don't think that's hyperbole, because I had to sort of examine deeply what was it that I truly wanted in the face of a lot of societal influence. Your parents, meaning well, want you to do this, this, and this. Society wants you to do this, 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 this. There's a material accomplishment, these boxes we need to check. And it struck me, well, that wasn't the path that I wanted to take. And not taking it is not necessarily the end of the world. Why not give it a try? And if failure is the outcome, so be it. We can regroup and try something else. But to have tried, then I would probably live the balance of my life with the dull ache that comes with having given up. And I kind of convinced myself in those early years, those late teens, early 20s, that I'd rather try something completely. And if you fail, that's heartbreaking and painful and difficult. But in the long run, there's no dishonor. So I'd rather face the acute pain of not succeeding than to wonder what if. And this is the story of the movie. This is what's happening. And I guess I wanted to live that. This was a story and it was powerful and it meant something to me. And that's kind of how I've tried to live my life. So I was in Calgary, already interested in backcountry travel, already skiing. And I thought, well, if what would be the ultimate in terms of climbing? And I obviously studied about this beforehand. And that's Mount Everest. It's the highest peak in the world. And I dedicated myself to figuring out how to gain the skill to be part of a team to go and do that. And I went multiple times before we succeeded. My first 2 trips to Everest, we did not reach the summit. And I don't say we like I was on the summit. I wasn't the star. I wasn't even on the call sheet. I was, building latrines in base camp, serving, learning and trying to gain the craft. Right. And then slowly over time, moved my way up to being able to organize expeditions and had great opportunities through fundraising and sponsorship and doing the work, grinding it out day in, day out. And in this pursuit of climbing some of the world's highest mountains, and I was able to get to the summit of Everest. So in some crazy ways, it's an extension, really. It's not on a bike. It's on the side of a mountain. Same stuff.
Well, it takes the same amount of effort and planning and everything else. You've done both the north and the south faces of Everest?
I've had a chance to go to four expeditions to Everest, yes. And this is, it's a group of friends coming together, with complementary skill set, hopefully. Doesn't mean there isn't some friction, getting the job done, raising some money, buying permits and going to do it. And through that process, yes, I've been on 4 expeditions to Everest. Twice we made it to the summit, twice we didn't. And all 4 of those trips offered me the chance to be able to see Everest from the north side in Tibet and from the south side in Nepal.
That's amazing. I can't even imagine. I was watching one of your videos at base camp and going, I wouldn't be able to breathe there, let alone at higher elevations. That just kills me.
I think, what's interesting about that, Tony, is I think in some ways that everything is so relative. Fear, risk, competency. I bet with the right time, if you had the passion, borderline obsession, to do it, that we wanted to make the sacrifice. I'm not saying overnight. You can't just go drop 50 grand and jump on an Everest trip. You're probably going to die. And that would be problematic for the other people on the mountain too. But if you make the investment and invest the time and the energy to learn it, you might be more courageous than you think. You may harbor an adventurer that you never anticipated. There's lots of stuff I imagine, and I'm not trying to, pump anybody's tires here, but there's lots that you would do that I'd be like, whoa, forget it. I could never do that. And you might say the same thing. Yeah, sure. Jamie, right now, no. Yeah. But over the course of time, perhaps. So I do really believe that a lot of this is not an innate ability. There's so much that is learned. Sure, does Eddie Fiola have an innate ability, a center of gravity, a sense of where he is in space, proprioception, a kinesthetic sense? Did he do magical things on a bike? 100%. And I'm just like, oh, for sure. But that doesn't necessarily mean the rest of us can't at least experience some of that. We may never hit those lofty levels, and it's fairly unlikely that we would. But through our own expression and effort, I'm a big believer in that. That's what gives me sort of hope and belief in the human spirit.
Wow. Jamie, just watching some of your speeches online, and to the listeners, please go to YouTube, type in his name, and listen. I love watching your videos, man. I really do.
You're a good man. I haven't loaded any of those up, so I should probably go and check.
Yeah, it's you're a great storyteller, and it's interesting to hear how you've woven all of this together into your experiences and what you present to people.
Yeah, I'm very lucky to be able to do some of this stuff, to be able to sort of live it. And I didn't really even understand that there would be this opportunity to do this public speaking that I do, where I travel around. That's my chance. I got to visit with Bill as I was in LA speaking for a client. And then next week I'll be in Cancun speaking for another. And not always exotic locations like that, those two, but wherever it might be, to basically use those adventure metaphors, tie it into the business, facilitate some of those discussions. Often, I'm rolling up my sleeve with the CEO and the leadership team and the board, and we're spending a day digging into stuff. But I'm always using the adventure metaphor, talking these kind of principles that are really at the heart of this movie, crazily enough, to help people navigate that terrain and have real honest conversations with each other and face a bit of the truth and the raw reality of what's going on. I mean, it can slip into cliche if you're not careful. It can get trite fast. But it's also going to be really powerful and meaningful. And not just for a hard-charging sales team. We might have a group of highly intellectual, highly technical folks who are, grappling with much of what it is to be human, to work well together as a team. And I'm really, really lucky that I get to do that work, that I could turn a passion for climbing and adventure into something that serves more than one's egomaniacal pursuit. I can give something back. I can generate a living, take care of my family, but I can also give something back.
That's awesome. That is absolutely fantastic, Jamie. So you had a retail and e-commerce business. Do you still have it? And where would people find it?
I did 14 years. I had a bricks and mortar retail store in Calgary, like a little REI down in the States, a little MEC up here in Canada, smaller. And the belief was that I wanted to build a business that could generate some cash flow that was more predictable, other than this sort of, adventurous lifestyle where you're kind of, living in a van down by the river type of situation, to try to build some foundation and responsibility, but really build a business that I believed in. I wanted to do business in a world that I understand. I understand a down jacket, sleeping bag, backpacks, but not just for the elite athlete who wants to use it in the Himalaya. I do really believe that these wild spaces should be accessed by more people for a few reasons. One, because we'll preserve them, which I think is important. But two, getting outside is, I think, important for our own health and well-being. Moving in the natural environment, putting away our technology, which I love, but shove it in your pack and forget about it for a bit. Building relationships, talking on the trail, enjoying the environment, getting hit by the storm, and enduring and building your confidence and breathing some fresh air. And really, a lot of that product that you need is expensive, right? To stay warm, to stay dry, to prevent blisters. I thought we got to build a business where we can democratize, if you will, access. We're going to sell the elite stuff, the Arc'teryx, the Icebreaker, all the beautiful stuff. But we also, let's have an approachable brand that this is about being included. And it probably stems back from a bit of being like an outsider on Rad, where I didn't get to go and talk to the BMXers much. I thought we need to welcome more people into the outdoors, not trying to be cool and aloof and, hey, you don't get to be part of this. No, I think we should change that. We should welcome folks. I'm sure the elite get tired. Eddie Fiola is getting bombarded on a regular basis from everybody. But I think as an ambassador, he has a responsibility to welcome more people into the fold. We need to be more inviting. And I kind of learned that And I thought we got to do that with the outdoor world, make it more approachable because it's intimidating. There's bears out there, Tony. It's cold, it's windy, it's gnarly. It's easy to sit at home and watch TV. Hey, sure, watch a little, but get going.
Okay, that's fantastic advice that I need to pay more attention
I really
to.
feel like I'm preaching. I feel like I'm preaching here. I apologize, man. And you live in Santa Monica. You should be getting out every day, right around sunset. I don't care how far you live from the beach, man. Get down there on a bike, preferably, and just walk in the sand, kick your shoes off, and watch the sun pass. A mile.
Yeah.
Tell me you go there every day.
Every day that I can, yeah. So if I'm not working, I'm not on a photo shoot or something like that.
Okay. All right. Well, if you're on set, I get it. But man, put it in your calendar. Like I really do think it's almost like, well, every day I can. And I'm not picking on you because for sure life comes up. We've got a million things going on. But, figuring out in that calendar, how is it 3, 4, 5 days a week that wherever I am, I'm going to somehow, and hey, the sunset's not an opportune moments when it's pretty predictable though.
Yes.
But putting that practice, jumping on your bike, going for it's 20, you don't need 4 hours. You don't need to go down to a park and have a workout. 10 minutes, man. Jump on your bike, feel some wind through your hair, catch the fresh breath, man. Watch the sunset, ride back. Maybe it's a mile there and a mile back. That's good living.
Yeah, it's very it's a nice place. I pay the sunshine tax for it though. So, but
you do, yep.
Well, Jamie, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I appreciate it. You're a fantastic guest. And it was absolutely great to meet you. Are you going to go to the 40th?
Well, here's the thing. I'm like a little bit clueless in a lot of my, I text back and forth with Bill here and there, and we stay connected. And anything that happens that I end up going to, it's because Bill says, "Hey, you're going to be there." So I don't know. I think is it Jeremy? Some wonderful folks who are passionate about, and someone like you, Jeremy, exactly. And so I would love to. I think it's it'll be March when the movie was released. But then is it July or something might happen?
It's July.
I don't know.
It's July, and it's currently being planned. So not a guarantee, but they're looking
throw
at
my
Cochrane
hat
and Calgary.
in the ring if you know anybody. Dude, I'm in Calgary, and Cochrane is 20 minutes away. So if I don't show up, shame on me.
I'm going to track you down because you have to sign my laser disc.
Let's do it.
All right, Jamie, thank you so much. And I'll have to have you on again. Hey, thanks for making it all the way to the end of this episode. Please hit that like and subscribe button and check out our other episodes.